Record. Okay, good. I'm on Facebook. And this is going to be on in my group. In my Hellman. Oh, my page. That's what I meant to do. My page. Hold on, my page. So many pages. Okay, here we go. Okay. So we're starting to go over to the Facebook group. Okay. So we are on and live now. Let me get back to my Zoom. So, hi, everybody. So, I am Amanda Hellman. I am an author, coach, consultant, and speaker. And I work in different capacities of education, mental health, and leadership. And this is the Traumaplicity show that is on the Amanda Hellman author and speaker page every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Central Time. And if you don't catch it live, you can catch it any other time after this. And just, there was a lot of storms. So even though I had a lot of lighting, now it's a little different right now, but just bear with it. I'm really thankful I have Frank Pepe here with me, and I've met him on LinkedIn. So Frank, it's great to have you on here. If you could share about yourself.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on. So a bit about my background. I've been sharing a bit on LinkedIn and writing some of my stories about my childhood and things like that. And I'm a teacher by trade, and then now I've got more into the training side of things professionally for the last few years. So teaching, training, a little bit of writing, things like that. Is kind of framed my career, what I like to do for fun.
Great, thank you. So I'm really glad, and I know you have written blogs, and I had read some and really appreciate the different writings you're doing in your journey. So certainly when I reached out to you, I was thinking about different pieces that I know we've talked about perhaps informally or, just talking about different scenarios. So I'm wanting tonight just to hear part of your journey, right? A part of your journey, and then perhaps 3 or 5, right? Simple, because we know trauma plus simplicity makes our simple steps to healing complex trauma processes. So just hearing your story and some steps you took. So if you can just start there.
Yeah, so I alluded to the writing before. That's honestly one of the biggest things that's helped. To kind of give you background on my trauma, to go into that a little bit. It's kind of a long story, but I'll try to keep it short. Essentially, when I was growing up, it was my mother, my father, and my 2 half siblings. My 2 half siblings were my father's from a previous marriage, and I was real little at the time. I was like 5, 6 years old. So we were this little, combined family. And, my trauma kind of all started with like an initial abandonment wound. One day my mom and I came home, and my dad had left and taken my 2 siblings, and we came home to an empty house. So that's kind of where the adventure began. So for me, there's a lot of, abandonment issues that I've dealt with, a lot of trauma that occurred after that through, having to visit my dad every other weekend. Dealt with a lot of abuse, emotional, physical, things like that for probably the next 5 years, I'd say. He was in my life for a little bit longer, till I was about 16, and then completely, fell off the face of the earth, and I haven't heard from him since. So that's where a lot of my trauma has come from, that whole situation. So the biggest thing that I alluded to before that has helped has been writing. So the most common way that I've done that has been writing in my journal every day. So I have several journals now that are piling up as the years go by, and a lot of it has just been writing out. What am I feeling right now, and what am I worried about? Then more on the helping side, when I'm doing well, I try to write a lot about what am I grateful for, and that's been really helpful. Just as like a daily practice to just kind of get right into my body, right into my mind, and think about what's affecting me. So that's been really helpful. And then kind of more lately, when we were talking about the LinkedIn articles, I hit the point where I was like, I just feel like I need to say these things out loud for other people to see. It's been something that I thought about for a while. And I'd say probably about 5 months ago, I finally reached the point where I was like, you know what? There's some stories here that I think could help people, and there's some stories that I think I need to tell to more than just the people that are, very close to me. So I finally, put pen to paper, or I guess, finger to keys, and started writing out some of the stories of things that happened to me. And I tried not to just make it, woe is me stories. I tried to, put a silver lining to each one, explain, how I dealt with it in the moment and how I continue to deal with those situations and how I've healed from them a bit. And the funny thing for me with writing those, honestly, in just the last few months has been, not only has it been like a cathartic release, but also the big thing that I've realized is like a lot of those emotions that I had pent up inside. Once I wrote them out and a little bit of time passed, so many of them I don't even really feel anymore. It's almost like just this release, like it's all built up into a bottle, and we pulled the cork out and it's all let out. So I really think for me, writing is a big one. That'd be first. Do you want me to go into some of the other ones now too?
Well, I'm just going to comment, first of all, I appreciate your story. I know you talked about the abandonment being a huge part after your father left and really dealing with that, right? The abandonment, rejection, just any of those feelings that happen and really going through that. And two of the simple steps you talked about, the first one being about writing. So when you do journal, right? So one daily practice you have, so that's a simple step, right? So we can tell the audience is that you journal, whether it's journaling or drawing, right? Or a phrase or something, right? And I'm curious, when you write, do you have a certain time limit, or is it just whatever you're journaling? Can you share that with the audience?
No time limit. I
Okay.
just put pen to paper and go. And it's really just whatever I'm feeling. So some days I might be feeling more grateful, and that's just what I start writing.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of days it's just a dump of my emotions. It's just a lot of times one of the first things I do when I wake up is this is what I'm feeling. I need to get it out.
Sure. Okay, so you have a practice that's just journaling at some point, right, during the day, and it's open to not having a time stamp or a certain time limit. So definitely yours is getting a journal and just writing so that you have that free time and really looking at identifying your emotions. So like you said, with like that cork bottle, that you're able to write out how you're feeling over time, having less of those, right? Everything just kind of like a soda bottle when you shake it, right? Or anything else, like when everything's there, it's just going to continue and continue and continue. So you were just speaking to simple step one, if I'm feeling a certain way, two, get my journal, three, write down some emotions, four, see how you're feeling later. So those are some simple parts of the journal. Okay. Thank you. And then what's your other parts or other
Yeah.
steps that you might use? Any other
Yeah. I mean,
steps? Okay.
strategies or whatnot. Yeah. Yeah. Another big thing that's been helpful, I know it probably sounds cliche, but reaching out for help and
Mm-hmm.
getting support. And the way that I've done that is about 2 years ago now, I started a men's support group with a group of my friends. We meet every Monday night, and we've been doing it virtually now for over a year.
Mm-hmm.
And we have it very structured, which is nice. I kind of like that. Where each of us gets roughly 20 minutes to either share or get feedback. Some combination within that 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be about anything, right? There's no rhyme or reason for it, and it was just such an organic thing that started amongst myself and a group of friends. So um, that's really therapeutic, especially for me. I'm by far the youngest guy in the group, and it's all men. And with my story with my dad growing up, it's really helpful to have
Mm-hmm.
men older than me, fill out that role and to be there every week to talk to.
That's great. So your second step, and I love that. So you have that men's support group, and what's nice for you is that you have these mentors. Like you said, you're the youngest, but and I love how you said everybody has a voice, or everybody gets to talk. It doesn't have to be as structured in that everybody gets to talk, but it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be a specific topic, which is nice, right, for men. And so perhaps men that are again going through some of these different things out there, right? Because we're human, all of us have something that we're going through. Certainly, I think that's a great idea. And perhaps, Frank, if they want to get in touch with you, maybe see how that happens or what it looks like, do you have an email or something I can put down in my comments so that maybe
Yeah.
perhaps men would be willing, that maybe they're watching this video would be willing to get in contact with you and see how to start something like that or what you're doing so they can get ideas?
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. I mean, LinkedIn's obviously the easiest one. So, Frank Pepe, my LinkedIn there. And then my blog, you can also reach me through my blog. My blog's called finallybeingfrank.wordpress.com.
Great. Okay. So we'll definitely get that information for anybody who wants to, get in touch with you or has questions. That's great. So definitely the second part after journaling, right, and getting out your emotions, processing, and then reflecting is reaching out for help, like you said, or having a support group and then attending that consistently so that you have your voices heard and everybody else's. So that's great. Is there one other simple strategy that you use that you find is helpful?
Yeah, I think it seems like to me like mindfulness has been this big trend in the last few years and whatnot. So the way that I try to embody
Hmm.
mindfulness, what works for me is just getting out in nature. So that's been really helpful for me from a trauma standpoint too, because I've just learned how to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
I think a big part of my trauma is always feeling like I need to do and go and go and achieve and constantly racing. So I think when I can get out of that frantic state and it's a more of a relaxed state, I think that's what really helps. So for me, taking hikes, going for walks, big one is riding my bike. I'm usually, zipping around my area on my bike, even if it's just for half an hour during my work lunch,
Mm-hmm.
just to get into my body and let out whatever I'm feeling. And I think lately, in that same vein, I've been catching on to like where I'm feeling emotions in my body, and trying to pay attention to that. So, if I'm feeling a lot of pain in one area of my body or another, I, try to figure out if there's a, emotional attachment to that and then work that out through either stretching or again, getting active.
Great. That's great. So I think that third step would be finding a place. You said nature is where you go, but finding a place that is safe or a place that calms or relaxes you so you don't have to go, like you had said, constantly feeling on the go. So whether it be riding your bike or for those of you in the audience, maybe it's going to the beach, right? My favorite place is the beach. I could sit there and just be calm. Or perhaps you do like hiking, right? Or any of those things. So, Frank, I think that's a great suggestion, right? The simple step is just finding time every day for yourself in something that relaxes you and can help you keep balance.
For sure. For sure.
Good. So I know, appreciate your story and just thinking about other steps. You may have if you do have other strategies, great. And if those are your key three, that is absolutely fine. Um, just wanted to say somebody's going through this, right? Maybe they're just starting their journey. I know that you said you've had a long journey, but really learning how to actually release emotions. What would you say to them at the beginning of their journey? Like, what would encourage them that perhaps you needed when you started?
Um, I guess from the encouragement standpoint, I guess I'd just say be consistent with whatever you're finding works. So for me, it was writing and just forcing myself every day to write. And maybe not every day, but very consistently.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'd say that it's not going to be a quick process. Just a quick little metaphor that I think might help people. For me, I felt like if you picture like a black cup of water, a cup of water with just like dirt and grime and all kinds of nastiness in there. That's kind of how my trauma felt. And through the process of consistently writing and through the process of taking those, solitary walks and whatnot and connecting with the men in my support group, it felt like I was progressively pouring in clear water on top of it. So, some of the black was
Mm-hmm.
overflowing out. And now it feels like the amount of, muck and whatnot that was in that cup has kind of phased itself out as it's become more saturated with the clearer water. There might still be some residual, dark in there, but it's considerably less just through that consistency.
Yeah, that's great. I like that analogy. And that's exactly it, right? The more that we actually go into taking out all that, like I always call them, not our emotions are important, right? And our old stuff, but there is stuff that kind of gets, like you said, darker, right? Or there's some stuff that really needs to go because then the more stuff we get out, the more lighter we are because we're getting the heavy feelings, right? Some of those things that really may impact our emotions, our whole body, our whole being, how we respond, how we're thinking, and all of those things do. So as we continue to heal, right, or go deeper, and I love that, Frank, I've had women on here because I, tend to always, I work with a lot of women, but I also think it's so important for men, right, to talk about mental health or talk about wellness. And you don't always see that there's a lot of support groups for men, right, with mental health. I mean, perhaps I'm in error because I know you're focused more on that, but in what I've seen, I don't always see that. So I'm just curious for you, before you and I think you said you started the support group. Did you are there a lot of, like, how that happened, and how was that something that you were looking for, you ended up doing because there was nothing really there?
Um, yeah, so the way that I'd known that group of friends was through like a therapy workshop that I had done,
Okay.
a few years ago. And all of the guys that I had in mind had done it as well. So that's kind of how I knew them. But initially, it just started off with, there was, one of the friends from that community. He works right down the road, and I just ran into him at a coffee shop, and I had hatched this idea with him. I was like, "What do you think about starting our own, like our support group for you and I, and whatever other men we think would be good fits?" And it was one of
Mhm.
those things where it just came together so fast,
Mhm.
and mostly just out of us being friends, and knowing that we needed some more connection and support in our lives. And then
Mhm.
we literally, right there when we hatched the idea, just said, who do we know that we think would be a good addition to the group? We reached out to 3 men, and they all said yes, and then we decided 5 is a good number, and
Mhm.
we stuck with that, since. So it was, again, pretty organic.
Yeah, so it is organic. That makes sense, right? Sometimes that happens, or sometimes there might be groups that form, right, from people you don't know. And I think that's amazing that you said
Mhm.
it went pretty quickly. But what would you say for men? Do you think, first of all, as part of my question, do you think there's a lot of men's support groups out there for trauma or healing mental, or for mental health?
Having a little bit of trouble hearing you. I don't know if you can hear
Okay,
me. I think we're skipping out a little
sure.
bit.
Yeah, there was a little bit. So can you hear me now? It might be because of the weather, but so I was just talking about, can you hear me now? Okay, now you're back on. So I was asking about
Not sure if
um
you can hear me, Amanda, or not,
yes,
but
now
I know the storms are rolling over
yes.
now.
Yeah, now I can hear you. I was just asking about mental health. Do you think there's a lot of mental health support for men? Do you think there's a lot of mental health support for men? Okay. It may have froze. So everyone, if you are watching, oh, there you are. I think the storm started. Can you hear me now, Frank? No? Can you hear me now? Well, what we're going to do is, Frank, I know you're on here. I appreciate your time. There's great strategies. I'm going to end this just because of the thunderstorm. But if you want to get in touch with Frank, we will do so. And if we need to do another interview, we can, uh, based on your feedback. So thank you for watching, everybody. And thank you, Frank. Hold on. I'm going to just